Hi, my name is Jake Waggoner, and I'm a junior in the Randall Research Scholars Program studying Management Information Systems and Finance.
Hi, I'm Ashley Hollingsworth, and I'm a sophomore in the Randall Research Scholars Program studying Economics and Finance.
Tonight we are going to be presenting to you our past semester's work with the Alabama football team, predicting performance by creating an athlete management system. We did this project in collaboration with Bryant Long and Ashley, or Ashley's on the stream, and Olivia Ricci. Some of the background of our project is that with the UA football team, which has a very high past success with 17 national titles over its 100-plus year history, we are working with Mr. Clay Keith, who is our project director, and he is an athletic performance analyst for the football team. Some other stakeholders in our project are Dr. Matt Ray, the director of sports science, and all the athletes and coaches who will be accessing our dashboard.
Our project has several objectives and will ultimately span several semesters. This semester specifically, we wanted to focus on using Microsoft Power BI to make the data that Mr. Clay Keith was sending us about UA's football team into easily readable and observable graphs. Going forward, we'd like to be able to also incorporate some historical data into these graphs and be able to use that to make predictions about the football team as far as coaching decisions go, so they can better prepare themselves for game days.
To gather our data, we use the Catapult system, which contains a GPS, an accelerometer, and a magnetometer. You may not have heard of a magnetometer, but this is how direction is added to our data. It is worn by all players during practice, and the GPS aspect of this unit updates at 10 hertz, so 10 times each second, and the other aspects update at 100 hertz, so 100 times every second it receives data. Some of the measures that this unit brings in include explosiveness, acceleration, maximum acceleration, and maximum velocity. One key measure that I'm going to dig into a little bit deeper as an example is player load. This is defined as the instantaneous rate of change of acceleration divided by a scaling factor. Simply put, this is the work performed by a player during a given practice. It is regardless of distance, which makes it useful across indoor and outdoor practices, as the GPS functions cannot be used indoor, and this function stays constant. It accounts for effort exerted by the impact of motions such as the heel striking the ground and hits between players. This here is the first screen that you see when you access our dashboard. It is the filter screen and allows you to select and narrow down what data you'll see on the following summaries. In this example, we have narrowed the date to only include the regular season football games and their leading practices. We have narrowed the player status to only be full go, therefore excluding players who may be recovering from an injury and are limited in practice. The location is set to outdoor, and our player group is only wide receivers, who will be summarized. This page here is one of the data pages that a coach might look at. This page compares player load, which I described previously, and explosiveness. Explosiveness is the measure of each individual acceleration moment by a player. These two, by putting them on the same graphs, coaches can look for relationships and determine if there is something that they are doing with one measure in practice that it could be negatively or positively affecting other aspects of performance. For example, on this chart, in the last 3 weeks mentioned, you can see that the player load is declining. This corresponds at the same time to a decrease in the explosiveness. A coach might look at this and wonder if there could be an actual causation relationship. They would go ahead and look at some of the other charts that we have, as well as some of the other information that they know about these measures, to determine if they need to change their practice to make sure our players are as explosive as they can be during a game.
So our project presents both short-term and long-term value to UA's football team. In the short term, we are creating a reusable framework that allows for expansion depending on what exactly the team might need. And we're creating this report spending much less time than the current analyst, Mr. Clay Keith spends, so that he can much easier interpret those, as well as the other coaches and athletes. And then in the long term, this allows for injury prevention when we incorporate the historical graphs so we can see what might have led to injuries in the past on game days and during practices and what we can do to prevent that going forward. And that in hand with that is optimized preparation for game days, again, so we can see what led to better game days in the past and how we can do that in the future. And then with the data we have on each individual athlete, we can create solutions for them based on their individual stats so we can see what works best for each athlete. Some limitations that we faced this semester with Power BI, the software that we chose to use, it took quite a few weeks to be able to get access to it. And then we needed the Pro version and it took a few more weeks to be able to get that. The Pro version allowed us to more efficiently communicate with each other and collaborate on the project. And then with COVID-19, there were some unforeseen circumstances. For example, the LSU game getting canceled could have affected some of our data, as well as we had planned to get into the workout room with some of the other players so that we could see how exactly or where exactly those measurements that we were using were coming from, so we could better understand what they meant. And for the things like explosiveness especially, which is not a common measurement, we had hoped to be able to, again, get into the workout rooms and better understand those, but COVID prevented it. And then some external factors in the athlete's life can change the data. Some things like the stress they're going through, factors that they can't necessarily control, we can't control, which could make the data less accurate. Going forward, we want to incorporate different types of data into this program. So we do currently use the strength and conditioning data that Mr. Clay Keith sent us, but we hope to also incorporate things like nutritional data, what they're eating, general wellness, such as their sleep schedule, what other stressors might be going on in their life that can affect their performance during workouts and games, as well as, again, the historical data, the injury data, and game day data. This concludes our presentation, and we will now open it up for questions.
You briefly touched on the player load, for example. How much about football do you have to know to be able to effectively develop a dashboard?
I was having some difficulty hearing you there.
Yeah.
Could you repeat the question?
How much do you have to know about football, the game itself, to be able to develop an effective dashboard versus just being quantitatively literate?
I think it's the more you know about football, actually, it wouldn't really be football that is most beneficial to know about. It's just some performance analytics. Some of the equivalent softwares that we looked at as examples are used by many other sports like soccer and rugby. And so it's more being knowledgeable in these sort of physiological things and what the measures mean that can help you understand what might be related. The knowledge of football is beneficial, especially when correlating it with game day, but we had to do a lot of learning about those deeper statistics as well. So you don't need too much basic knowledge to get started on reading these dashboards.
We have an online question. How is GPS data an advantage over video?
With the GPS data, it's much easier for us to, especially with the speeds, with the catapult, we're able to much easier see like how fast they're going, the explosiveness and things like that. You can't just look at a video and figure out the explosiveness. So catapult gives us much more exact measurements.
Adding on to that, I think that having the GPS unit on the players gives us instantaneous results. Whereas if we use the video to get some of like the distance traveled and the workload that players put in, it would take an analyst hours to compromise or create those statistics after every single practice.
Since Catapult can't be used on game day, how do you measure success?
The game day successes, first of all, we look at the results and the overall outcome of the game as well as individual player statistics. But one big type of data that we will bring into this dashboard, it comes from Pro Football Focus. They're a third party that creates all kinds of gradings on each individual player, on position groups, and on the team as a whole. And this is posted online for fans to use and especially for NFL scouts to use when evaluating players. One big advantage of bringing in these grades of each player's gameplay is that really gets their buy-in, because players who are focused on making the NFL, knowing that what our analytics can point them in the direction to raise their Pro Football Focus grade and in turn raise their draft stock, that really gets their buy-in into this analytics field and why they need to listen to what the charts say.
Very good. Well, if there's no other questions from the audience, then commend you both for the research that you're doing and the quality presentation that you delivered. Thank you both very much.